Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talking in Stations Midweek Update. This is Season 1, Episode 17. It is currently Pi Day, if you're still here in the United States, or the unfortunate day after Pi Day for everybody else in the world. This week, we have, as always, myself, Artimus Albosa, as well as joined by my co-host, RonUSMC.
Yep, with a dino shirt. Just want to make sure that's on camera.
All right, and we also have Silver Suspiria.
Okay, I have an eagle shirt, but it's waiting for me in Toronto. My guy's bringing me it, but I have an eagle here, so.
All right, fair enough. Also joining us today on the show on camera, for those watching, in the bottom, what is that, the right-hand corner? We have, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jalep Malukker. I lost an expensive ship last week.
And that is how you will be remembered, unfortunately. He is from Exodus, in particular Ganja Labs from Exodus. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah, I think that's close enough.
Everything about you I find difficult to pronounce. This is going to be a fun episode. Finally, rounding out the show tonight, we have Predator Elite from Did He Say Jump?
How's it going, everyone?
All right, well, let's jump right into this one. First and foremost, we want to do things a bit differently today. We're going to talk about two things, two massive things, which I'm super excited to discuss. Number one, we have Jalep on to talk about the Golden Magnate and his experience in EVE. And number two, we've got the massive balance changes. And we're going to be talking about them particularly in the context of low-sec, solo, small gang, etc. That's based on the guests that we have tonight. So, heads up, that's what we're going to see in the show today. But starting off, we want to talk with Jalep about his career in EVE leading up to, like, how do you even get a Golden Magnate to begin with in order to lose it? So, Jalep, let's start from the beginning. When did you start playing EVE?
I started playing in 2013. I think it was pretty close to Valentine's Day, actually. So I think that makes it just coming up on 6 years, or just 6 years now.
Right around the 10-year anniversary of EVE, then.
Yep. Yeah, relatively late.
So where did you go from there? Did you start out with the typical, I was a high-sec miner mission runner and then got shot and decided to do PvP, or what was your story?
No, I'm terrible at PvP. I never really tried it. I found out early on that there was, I went to Jeddah and there was all these yellow wrecks, and I was like, well, I don't know why they're yellow, but there's all kinds of shiny stuff inside. So I opened it up and I looted a bunch, and I got, blown up like 2 seconds later because I went suspect. But I was like, seems like a pretty good way to make a living as long as I can figure out how to not get shot. So I just basically ninja looting wrecks on the Jeddah undock, and that slowly morphed into dueling people in Jeddah in T1 frigates and everything. And then eventually started kind of making my way into Black Rise, where eventually I met up with the ex-meta guys and started solo or doing small gang stuff, and mostly in small ships at the time with them for quite a while. I had a great time.
Yeah, in fact, you found me doing that same thing and was the first person to recruit me along with Contra to a corp. Similar starts there.
Yeah, that's right. There was this guy that was always flying around in these freaking rail Comet, and he killed me a couple of times, and I'm like, damn it, all right, well, he's obviously pretty good, so let's get him in corp, because he was always flying solo. And at the time, we were like, 2, 3, maybe 4-man fleets, so we were looking for people who had, were able to be self-sufficient out in space, flying solo and things like that. So we started chatting up Silver.
I'm trying to scroll through your kill board and find your old lost mails in Jeddah, but that you have lost so many, like, T1 frigates and destroyers. It is impossible. I'm on page 31, and I still haven't gotten out of the slashers yet. Oh, now we found a Jeddah kill mail. Okay.
Yeah, so the slashers, I think, I did a lot of slashers in Jeddah, and then when I went out to, like, Black Rise and stuff, I was still flying slashers for a while, but eventually moved over to my beloved H-Tron.
Yeah, until you found the truth.
That's right, man. Atron's the best.
Jalep actually has a really good video out there somewhere. If you can look it up, maybe I can find it and link it about how to fly the Atron correctly. It's really
Oh,
good.
did you make that Rail Atron video? Were you the one?
No, it's
I
a
think
that's
that's
blaster Atron.
sacrilege.
Oh, I remember there's this fantastic video I saw somewhere. Maybe it was 2 years ago, where this dude flew around on a Rail Atron, and just all of the random chatter and local he got because he was killing people in a Rail Atron was hilarious.
Yeah, the blaster Atron's awesome. I love that thing.
Okay, so you started out, you're in Jita, you moved into small-scale frigate PvP in low sec, you recruited Silver to your corp, but then you left that corp and joined Exodus. What's the story there?
Yep. Some point in X-Men, Silver, I don't know if you can help me remember that, but I started really enjoying.
Yeah.
I started really liking flying Interceptor, and I really enjoyed tackling stuff, finding stuff to kill. And at the time, Exodus and Black Rise was doing a lot of that. There was tons of Exodus Interceptors all over the place. So I started flying with those guys, and getting into more nano stuff and a little bit bigger ships, but still mostly flying tackle, which is what I really have always liked, flying small, fast ships. A lot of double clicking and manual piloting.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, Exodus was like the upgrade to X Meta. Like, you as CEO were kind of pulling us in that direction anyway. Like, your FC style shifted to like more snipey stuff, more elite hunting style, and then Exodus was doing that at a very high level. So that was the draw, I think, for you, and can't blame you for that.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So when you joined Exodus, because you eventually became an Alliance tournament pilot, maybe I'm jumping the gun a bit here. When you joined Exodus, was that sort of on your radar as something you wanted to do? Is that a reason for joining? I recall, is it 2 years ago?
Is that what you said?
Yeah, the Alliance tournament.
Yeah, I guess it was it was definitely something that I was interested in. I don't think it was the primary reason that I joined Exodus, but it was a nice side benefit.
So what is your tournament experience exactly? How many have you flown in? Has Exodus won a tournament?
No, we haven't. I flew in 2 with Exodus. I don't remember the numbers now. It was probably 2015 and 2016, whatever those numbers are, I think. Or maybe 16 and 7. I can't remember. But anyway, yeah, so I flew in 2 with them. I think we got 6th place and 8th place those years or something like that.
And those were the years where PL and Hydra were still, if I'm remembering correctly, PL and Hydra were still like top dogs. So it was one of those two were expected to win, and then the real battle was whoever would get that 3rd place, like 10th place, was where the majority of the competition was. So 6th and 8th, in the context of the Alliance tournament, and those years in particular, that is pretty good.
Yeah, I think we were pretty good. We certainly put a ton of work in, that's for sure. Crazy amount of work into the AT.
And then
I've never put so much work into a video game before.
So what was your... how do I want to phrase this? Back in my experience with the Alliance tournament, I flew with Mercenary Coalition for 1 year. It was 2 years. And we would do, because of our time zone split, we would have an EU TZ group and a US TZ group. And so if you were flying with both, you were putting in like 30 to 40 hours a week, plus your weekends, into just straight up practice. And then on top of it, I was also one of our main theory crafters. So I was putting in time on top of that. What was your amount of, I don't want to be this how much time comparing how much time you committed, but is it similar for Exodus? Because you guys were really good, so you guys must have put in a lot of time.
Yeah, so Exodus is almost exclusively a USTZ alliance, so we don't have the like multiple time zone thing. But we would start practicing in like February, and not right away, but eventually, maybe like, I don't know, a month or two into it, it would ramp up to 3 practices a week. So we'd do 3 practices a week that were like, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours long. And then, you know, all the theory crafting and spying and stuff like that kind of on the side as well. So I don't know that I could quantify the exact number of hours. I wasn't doing the majority of the theory crafting. So I didn't put as much time into that. But even just like testing and, you know, early on before like multi-buy and multi-fit, even just like fitting all the ships was a lot of work just to get everything ready on Sissy, or setting up the arena, dropping the, you know, all the beacons for the arena and everything like that. It just takes a lot of time to get all that stuff set up.
Yeah, and you guys were relatively small, so you didn't really have like the drove of people to help you with that stuff, right? Like a lot of alliances have the benefit of like getting 20 people out, set up the arena, clear off the wrecks, and fit the ships for you. You were doing all that yourself and practicing, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just the pilots who fly in the AT that are doing all that work. We don't have support staff or anything. It's just all us.
Interesting. So the Alliance Tournament gives out Alliance Tournament prize ships, which the Golden Magnate is not an Alliance Tournament prize ship. Just for clarification for any viewers who are unfamiliar, the Golden Magnate is an award for winning the Amarr championships. There's been 2 of them. There was one years upon years ago. There was one more recently. The Golden Magnate, which you lost, did you win it in the tournament, or did you get it from some other means?
Yeah, I didn't. So I was not on that team. I helped them practice and stuff, but I was not on the team. Wasa QC was my, or I guess is my good buddy. He has since quit the game, and when he quit the game, he gave me the Gold Magnate.
Must have been a very good buddy, given how expensive that ship is.
Yeah, he let me fly it a few times before, like, he actually quit the game. But I don't know. He was just like, "Here, you can have this now."
Did you fly any?
I'm not coming back. So,
did you fly any like AT ships or something before the Magnate, or was this just like you're jumping straight into the deep end in terms of flying?
That's really good. You know, so now that I think about it, ironically, I have never flown an AT ship. I went right from, you know, regular ships to the Gold Magnate. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, okay. All right, I'm with you. I mean, I think that's awesome.
I mean, the
I
Magnate.
would suggest flying an AT ship, though. I would definitely suggest that.
I was going to say,
yeah, maybe I'll get around to it at some point.
Right up your alley as far as bonuses and the way it flies,
yeah,
right? And there are
totally.
other AT ships that you probably would enjoy if you could get your hands on some, right?
Sure. Yeah, like a Chromois, maybe. Whiptail would be cool. Yeah.
Well, let's talk those bonuses, right? Why would you fly a Golden Magnate? What is good about it, apart from it being super valuable?
I mean, it's almost like a cruiser in a frigate's body. You know, it's got stupid amounts of cap. It's got pretty decent tank. It's very fast. It does a truckload of damage. It's got a ton of grid. Its slot layout is great. I mean, you can look at the kill mail and see what my fit was. So, I mean, it's that ship. Like, if you just sat in a novice with that ship all day long, it's like you would have to DC to lose 1-on-1 to anything that could get into a novice. I mean, it's like basically impossible to lose just because of how fast it is and how much damage it does. I mean, I think that fit with Multi-Freak would do like 420 DPS out to like 16 kilometers, something like that. Don't quote me. I mean, you can obviously check the fit, but something like that. And those abyssal webs heated would go out to 22 kilometers. So like I said, if you're just sitting in a novice plex and something comes in, like you web it down and you just evaporate it before it can even get anywhere near you. And even if it does get near you and somehow manages to scram you, that AB went, I don't know, like 3,100 heated with snakes. So you're double webbing something and you're still going, 3,100 meters a second. You're, spitting out 420 DPI. Like what can get into a novice that would actually be able to take that down? So it's just incredibly powerful, from a solo, fighting a couple of guys type perspective. It's really, I mean, I think I only ran the repper on that thing like a handful of fights even. It just never even, and it's an armor ship. I mean, it never even got into armor all that often.
But it's worth noting on your loss mail, you died to carriers. So your loss didn't happen in a novice plex. So walk us through how did this happen?
Yeah, so I don't mean to imply that I only fought in novice plexes. I definitely did not only fight in novice plexes. I mean, I took fights all over the damn place with that thing. In this instance, on the when I lost it, I don't even remember what system I was in. Somewhere down the like Evelyn Anschout's pipe. There was a neutral thorax sitting on a gate that I jumped into, and I was like, all right, well, I'll see what this guy's doing. So I had a ping on that gate. So I ninja'd him. I just got aggression with him, warped up to the ping so that I wouldn't take gate guns. And then I warped back down and I started engaging him. Now I had done this the night before with a Hecate. If you look on my kill board, you'll see there's a Hecate that I very close by, if not in that exact same system. And that was the same set of circumstances. He was on a gate. I ninja'd him. I think he actually jumped through the gate, and then he came back through and I killed him. No problem. So these guys had noticed, Von Hole had noticed that I did that. I don't know if they know the Hecate pilot or they just saw it on the kill board or I don't know what, but so they set up this thorax as bait. So it was a neutral thorax. It's sitting on the gate. I ninja it. I warp back down, and I start shooting it. And I'm very comfortable. I mean, the thorax has no prayer of catching me, like I said, especially with the double webs, and I'm so much faster than him. But it's a cruiser, and so it's taken me a while to get through his tank. I should have noticed how long it was taking me to get through his tank because I'm still doing 400 and something DPS to him, and it's taken a long time to tick through the armor. So that really should have clued me in that, hey, dummy, like maybe this is bait. Maybe you should, get away. But I didn't because I wasn't thinking about that. I had my camera on the thorax because I wanted, even though there's no chance that the thorax is going to slingshot that ship, I just wanted to make sure to see him if he's, is he flying away from me? Is he flying towards me? What's he doing? So when the Astero's decloaked, got my camera down on the thorax. So it took me an extra second to switch the camera back to my ship so I could double click and try and burn away. And, that was just enough time. They decloaked like, I don't know, 5K from me or something like that. And then, they were double fed web Asteros. So, they're out to 13 kilometers with their webs, and they got all 4 webs on me and scram me. And I just wasn't able to get away from them. And at that point, too, the thorax turned back in. I don't know how many newts he had, but he had enough to completely newt me dry. So I was quad webbed, I was scrammed, and I've got a ton of medium newts on me, so I wasn't going anywhere. I was able to run my my AB for a while. I watched the video. I have a video of it, and I was watching my piloting. And normally, when you lose a ship, you're like, oh, dumbass, like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? You made all these mistakes. Other than obviously the obvious mistake of getting caught in the first place, I think my piloting once the Asteros decloaked was actually pretty good. Like, there's not really that many things that I wish I had done differently from that point forward. I dropped a Quave 0. I dropped an overclocker trying to get my speed up, but it just, with the 4 webs on me and the scram, like I just couldn't get away from the Asteros. And then once the thorax got newts on me, like I don't even think I ran my repper once. Looking at the video, like I was just totally capped out before I got anywhere near armor. And then, yeah, I mean, they dropped carriers on me, but I mean, they could have dropped anything on me at that point. I was caught, so I was going to die no matter what was shooting me.
I do want to take a minute and talk about the person who caught you, Von Hole. So this is not the first time I've heard of Von Hull, even though after killing your Golden Magnate, he went on to, within the same week, kill a Virtuoso, another Alliance tournament ship. But I had heard of him because one of my friends from Noir flew solo Black Ops battleships. So he multi-boxed a hunter and things, just flied around nullsec hunting people, specifically in the drone lands. And he'd also do this with like gangs of Black Ops battleships with his old corps. But one person they were always afraid of running into was Von Hull. And what Von Hull would do is he'd take alts, he'd create new alts from scratch, and then he'd inject them into Asteros. And the Astero is very common to see out in the drone lands as an exploration ship. So you've got alts with a blank killboard, no way to know that they're hunters. He's injected them up, they're flying around, and they are actively hunting for these solo PvPers, for people, or even small gangs. If he had enough carriers, he'd drop on gangs of, I think my buddy got dropped and he had 5 Sins, or 5 Black Ops battleships. His Sin escaped, the other 4 died. So the way this guy does it is he'll use his Astero, and then once it gets burned, he just recycles the ult, extracts the skills, injects a new one. So it is very, very hard to know if you're getting baited by him, and he is extremely good at it.
Yeah, from my conversations with them, that's basically what they did to me. They had noticed, that I was flying around a lot in Black Rise. They noticed the Hikade kill, so they figured a neutral something on a gate would attract my attention, which obviously it did. And then they just had the 2 Asteros, one of which had a Sino on it, that just had to get close enough to me when they decloaked that they could grab me. So, I mean, it was a freaking awesome plan on their part.
Well, you had been grabbing a lot of attention, though, right? How many kill marks do you have on that ship?
111.
Right. So you had a hell of a run with this ship before somebody noticed and like set up a. Did you get hunted before? Like any other instance where somebody at least tried to grab you, or anything like that happened?
I mean, nothing that I noticed. Right. I mean, you don't know you're being hunted until someone springs the trap. There was a couple of times where people did like some things that seemed a little bit shady, but were kind of like way too obvious to be a really good trap. And I just sort of ignored it and moved on. But no time where like, I had some crazy escape or anything like that, where, somebody popped a Sino but I was able to moonwalk out of there or anything like that.
Yeah, that's sort of interesting to me because you created a lot of noise between you and Wasa and really Exodus in general, right? I mean, Maxime was flying his around before whatever happened to him.
A ton. Yep.
Right. So like Exodus was known to take their golden magnates out on fairly often occasion, right? So for this to be the first time somebody come up with like the perfect plan is strange to me. I figured you'd be like hunted much earlier than that.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely flying it more aggressively than other people had. Nobody was ninjaing stuff on gates and taking fights in open space. Certainly not as much as I was. So that certainly made it easier for these guys to, to put together a plan. But I still think it was a really good plan, and kudos to them for pulling it off.
So now,
what's funny? Go ahead, Artemis.
Nah, you're good. What's up?
I was going to comment on your fit too. When you died and the X-Meta guys were looking at it, what we commented on your fit is you had no point, and people are like, "Wow, no point to that ship." And somebody said, "You don't need a point on the Magnate. No one's leaving grid ever."
That's absolutely right.
It's a Magnate point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. No, it's like a special ability. They should write it into the ship description. Like nobody warps off from that ship. Nobody does. Like, I think I may have had like 1 or 2 ships ever that warped off. I mean, 1, it does so much DPS, you don't even freaking know what's going on before you're. But 2, like you said, even if they're not being shot at, like people just rage burn at you. That's all they. I mean, think about it, right? Like you get 1 shot to maybe tackle and kill this ship. You don't care if you're going to lose your, whatever the heck it is you're in. So yeah, nobody warps off from that ship. There's no point in having a point on it.
Yeah, I remember because I was on grid with Maxine's once in a novice, and all I did was overheat and burn Adam. I didn't care what was going to happen. I overheated everything and just hit F1, right?
Yep,
so I thought
exactly.
It was a pretty funny conversation.
Which is exactly what I would do, right? I'm not leaving. You got to give up a chance to kill something like that. So
Yeah, because you never know what could happen, right? You could burn out your guns, you could burn out your prop, you know.
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so there was no point in putting a point on the ship. And the nice thing about having the double webs is, like, Vitone, a guy in my corp, is like, if they're on grid, they are there to kill you. Like, they're there to gank you. So having the double webs plus the dual prop gives you a lot of comfort zone, right? You can screw up and get scrammed, get webbed or whatever, and you can still burn out and get away in pretty much most cases.
How many
But in this,
gold magnates are there in the game?
So
We're giving out.
I'll tell you what I think my answer was, but then on the Eve Pulse thing where Falcon had the weird eyes, they were talking about the gold magnate loss, and they said a different number. So I don't actually know. I thought that in 2004 or whatever they had the first Amarr championship, I thought only one was given, and that one died. And then in 2016, they had the second Amarr championships, and 4 more were given out. Maxine suicided his, so that I thought only left 3, but Falcon said there was less than 10 known to be around. So I guess 3 is less than 10. Maybe he means the same thing. And then obviously mine just died. So now there's only 2 that are, I think there's only 2 that I know of anyway.
so moving forward, you're now going to be known as the pilot who lost his gold magnate in PvP, right? It's who you are now, at least until you lose something more expensive. Are you cool with that? Like, is that a reputation you're happy with having garnered?
It's fine. I mean, I definitely, like I said, I was flying it aggressively. I knew I was flying it aggressively. So I had made my peace with the fact that, like, probably going to lose this ship sooner or later. I just decided, like, you know what? Like, this is an awesome ship. It's really fun to fly. I want to have fun flying it. I don't want to be constantly scared. I don't want to be cautious. Like I said, just if you could sit inside a novice plex in that thing from now until the servers shut down, and unless you really, really screw up, you're not going to die. But to me, ask Silver when he used to roam with me. Like, I can't sit still in a plex. Like, I gotta be flying around looking for stuff.
Doing stuff on gates was your thing.
Right.
Gate guns,
right.
I don't care about those. We'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. So I just had a good time flying it, and I knew it wasn't like I didn't think I was going to lose it. I didn't think I was invincible. I knew that I would lose it sooner or later, and I was cool with that, and I had a great time doing it. So I really don't have any regrets. I mean, obviously, you think about when the trap was sprung and everything, you're like, wow, I wish I didn't do that. But all in all, man, like, it was a lot of fun. It was really cool too, like, just seeing people's reaction in local. Like, people would get all excited just to see it. Like, wow, that's so cool. Holy cow, am I really seeing this? You'd kill people and they'd be excited just to have a gold magnate, like, on their loss mail, So, like, just seeing that, like, level of excitement was a cool experience as well,
Yeah, you said to me when you lost it that when the game is over, and it will end at some point, all you have left is memories, right? So you got to experience something that no one else in Eve gets to experience. And aside from collecting the ship, which is a viable way of enjoying it too,
Sure.
You have a PvP experience that only others can dream of. That we can never have that. So that's really great to see.
Yeah, I had anybody who's familiar with Exodus, we're try hard, elite, whatever. And I had this weird experience, like, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago. So, if you go to Zkill, you can look at, like, top all time. So, like, top all time killers for a certain ship type or for a certain alliance or corp or whatever, right? It used to just be the top 10, and now they got, like, the top 100, I think it is. And I wasn't super active in the game, so I don't know what was going on. I don't know if Squiz was just having problems with Zkill or whatever, but there was a period for a couple of weeks at least where all that top all time stuff just was gone. Like, you clicked on the link and for whatever reason, it just wasn't there. And it really made me think, like, man, if Squiz just, like, shuts down Zkill or, gets rid of that functionality that's just, like, sort of arbitrary scorekeeping that he has, like, did it ever even happen? Like, does it even really matter? And so, like, at some point Zkill is going to go down. At some point Eve's going to go away. And, like, the only thing you're going to have is a memory of flying the ship. You're not going to be able to like show your like, look at this kill board. Your kids are going to be like, what the hell's a kill board? What does it matter? So it was just a way to have a good time is the way I look at it. And that's what I did with it.
Well, for the love of God, back up that video. Like, don't
Yeah.
be the guy that deletes all the goddamn videos. Back it up. Put it on OneDrive. Put it on Google Drive. Put it on all of them.
Yeah, it's backed up. It's not going. I don't know if I'm ever going to share it with the public, but
No. Let's talk about this for a little bit, because aside from Eve, you create other content. You're a pretty good video editor too, right? Did you not win the contest that CCP had a few years ago?
Yeah, the My Eve story thing. Yeah, I won that.
So why can't we see a Jalep video of you flying this thing? Maybe not the death part, but I know you have footage.
I do. So I was actually making a Gold Magnate video that I was going to kind of put together. The footage I was creating ended a little sooner than I was expecting, unfortunately. But yeah, I do have footage of me flying it. Who knows?
Don't deny me that footage.
It's just a lot of ships blowing up very quickly.
Literally the whole game, dude. That's all we do.
Yeah, totally.
I'm gonna link your My Story video if that's okay.
Yeah. That one was pretty fun to make.
Oh yeah, that was one. You just showed one other one. I like that video, the +1 one, the fleet up one. I show that to my guys to get them amped up for fleet now.
You're in that one.
I know, right at the end. I hear it. And my friend Duke laughing over me.
Yep.
I remember.
Yep. Yeah. Good times.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing this story with us. I really genuinely hope we get to see some of that footage from the Golden Magnate. It'll be fun to watch. A perspective that I don't think there's never been a video of someone flying a Golden Magnate, so it will literally be a unique perspective to see. But some other unique perspectives that I want to get are you and Predator Elite's perspective on the balance changes that just came out. Because these are a lot of changes. I think the majority of them, in fact, I'm fairly certain that these changes were made explicitly in mind with balancing nullsec. I don't think anybody could argue with that. But the game does not happen in a vacuum, right? Changes targeted at nullsec affect other areas of the game, including your guys' main hunting grounds, lowsec. Predator is the CEO of Did He Say Jump? Very storied lowsec used to be Alliance, now it's a corporation. Jalep, you hunt quite often in lowsec. Exodus, your corporation, they made their name hunting around in lowsec. Be that good or a bad thing. So let's quickly run through what changes were made, and then I'll get your guys' if you guys have one particular change that you think will affect you in a particular way that you want to chat about, we'll roll through. So the TLDR of the changes that happened, and anybody, I highly recommend you go and check out the dev blog. These changes are supposed to be coming this spring, so no release date has been announced yet, at least to my knowledge. But first and foremost, we have a massive change to all remote repair, which is that there is now diminishing returns to remote repair. But it's not like your normal stacking penalties where it depends on the number of modules you have activated. It depends on the amount of remote repair currently active. So the amount of rep per second a person would be getting. So one fax rep, the amount of rep a single fax is equivalent to like 50 or so frigate reps. So it doesn't matter, you can't cancel out somebody else's reps by putting a bunch of Logifigs on the field or something like that. But there are some other interesting things that you may be able to do in order to play with these mechanics and exploit them. But that's a discussion for another time, perhaps. And in addition to this massive change, which frankly on low sec scales, do you guys even think you'll see the impact from this change?
I think maybe the only viable change that we'll see in low sec is the fighter change.
Gotcha. Okay, well let's jump straight to that. So the next one, skipping through Haas for a minute, is the changes to supercarriers and carriers. The one which I think you're referring to is that the explosion radius has been increased and the explosion velocity has been decreased. Or am I reading that? Yeah, the explosion velocity has been decreased. So basically, fighter application nerfed pretty substantially across the board.
Yeah, that's pretty hard.
Yeah, definitely a plus. It's also going to force carriers to use more like Dramis instead of pure DPS drones, which will overall lower their DPS amount.
And them using Dramis means they're not using Sirens, so they don't have you tackled, even though they do have you webbed, because carriers can only use one support fighter. Or am I wrong?
That's right.
The silence means I'm not wrong. I'm very happy.
You're right. But Pred, did you think that the carrier in low sec and small gang was in a bad spot to begin with?
I think it honestly depends who you're fighting. I'll give you an example. We were fighting Snuff last night, and they brought 37 carriers versus our 20-man Gila, and we were barely tanking them. So if the fighter nerf actually was in effect, we probably would have tanked them.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah.
I mean, hang on. I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a second here. You were outnumbered, and they were in carriers, and you were tanking them. That seems fine to me.
You would think so.
Except that Pred, they're so oppressive, right? Like Snuff can wield them, and what are you going to do about it against Snuff, who will escalate on you in a second? So like if you try to carrier them, they're going to out escalate you. So guys our size just feel so oppressed by that capital force. There's absolutely nothing you can do. Is that right, Pred? Do you feel the same way?
I mean, we've killed fleets under massive like Titan and carrier reps before. It's nothing new. It just means that you have to go about it a different way. Like you could rip apart a fleet just by using jump desties as well while you tank the carrier ball.
How about you, Jalep? So you are an even smaller scale than Predator is in terms of your combat. Do you find that carriers tend to be oppressive in that arena?
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I agree with what Silver's saying, but our play style, we're not trying to take strategic objectives. We're not trying to win timers or anything like that. We're just trying to get kills. So holding the field is not important to us necessarily, right? It's just a matter of getting kills. So yeah, we could get. There's no way that we can compete. Right? We're gonna get put. If somebody like Snuff wants to push us off the field, they're just going to push us off the field with a million caps. But in terms of more like small game, I mean, we always look at bigger ships as just big, juicy targets, right? So I don't think that carriers in their current state, other than they're just kind of over proliferation, are in a bad spot. I think it's fairly easy to deal with them, at least in low spec on a small gang scale.
As far as carriers as targets are concerned, another change which this patch would bring is that the NSA, the module which essentially it gives carriers massive bonus to their scan res. This allows them to better operate in terms of fighter v fighter wars, but also makes them very good at targeting subcaps quickly. But then it also has a few downsides regarding their inability to use EWAR. Now it will also prevent them from warping when it is active. So that would mean that any carrier which tries to hot drop on you and then use its NSA to lock you up quickly, it's stuck there. So if you could theoretically hot drop it, it is now more vulnerable. And I also spoke to one of my buddies who does level 5 mission farming, and this could theoretically make level 5 mission farming more dangerous, or people will just use SIBOs instead. What do you guys think? Will it make hunting carriers easier, or is that not really something you care to do?
Jalep, you want to go first on this?
Yeah, I mean, totally. I think it's awesome, right? The more dangerous you can make things for caps, and the easier you can make, for them to get caught, I think the better. Particularly people who aren't paying attention, who might be, AFK ratting or whatever. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a good change. I mean, I know hunting level 5 carriers can be like a bit of a pain, but this will just make it a ton easier.
Yeah, it's kind of like when I would kind of make the analogy of we used to have off-grid links, and then they made links give you aggression, so you couldn't just have the link T3s orbit the gate anymore because it was too dangerous. Like, that's just all making things more dangerous. I think in general is just all around a good thing.
Cool. So really quickly, the change
Well, one last question on NSA. Do you guys think that this makes the NSA obsolete for low sec use? When would you fit an NSA to a carrier if you could get the same scan res with 2 CBOs and a rig? Like, do you think that we'll see a decrease in use in the NSA?
That is definitely a Pred question, not a Jalep question.
Yes and no. For PvE, I would still think it would still be used as long as you're paying attention to local, you're watching your D scan. Like, you'll know when someone's trying to hunt you. As far as PvP goes, yes and no. If you're like a small gang carrier group that's going around, maybe like anywhere from 1 to 5 carriers, you might not use it. But if you're in anything bigger than that, then you probably still will.
Gotcha. Okay. And do you think that this is going to shift the meta more towards armor carriers rather than shield? Or is there really not a difference really in low sec?
Usually shield is sometimes preferred, especially if you're going in for a gank, because you can use a lot of your lows for just eye stabs and nanos, and you can just one cycle NWD and then be gone. But as far as the NSA preventing you from warping in that regard, I don't know. It's kind of a toss-up. It depends really on your playstyle.
Okay. Well,
Does the NSA prevent warping or jumping or both?
I think they just
fantastic
specified
question.
warping, wasn't it?
I think they just said warping. They didn't really specify if you could. But
yeah, we were under the impression that you could still jump.
Assuming you've got cap, right? Because doesn't the NSA take a ton of cap?
It does.
Yeah.
And if you hot drop, you're not a jump cap anymore. So it's not like you could just jump and jump out. But in a PV, we were talking in a PVE instance, if a nuke came into local and got on top of you or somewhere near you, you could still jump out with an emergency sino or something.
Yeah, the dev blog specifically states that it will disallow warping. It does not say anything about disallowing jumping. That's a good point to bring up. I think maybe it's finally safe to mention the change that we skipped over temporarily, which is that HAWs are being adjusted for at least their use on Titans. Their damage modifier, or pardon me, their damage multiplier is being reduced by, or is being cut in half, and then for Dreads, that bonus is being reverted by a new bonus in Siege mode. So for Horde, everything is exactly the same, but for Titans with HAWs, your damage is now significantly reduced.
Yeah, Fred, this is a question for you. I'm really interested to hear what you had to say, given what happened the other night with those Haw Titans that caught your Condor. Condor got one shot by Haw Titan. So what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think CCP kind of messed this up a bit. I don't think the damage should have been nerfed. I just think the tracking should have been cut in half. The fact that a Titan can pretty much track a Frig is kind of absurd, and you just nerfing the damage in half is basically saying, okay, now I don't need 4 Titans to one-shot something, I'll need 8 to one-shot something. You just got to focus your fire a bit more.
To be clear, was this Condor piloting properly, or was he flying directly at a Titan?
No, we were proper. We MJD'd a Guardian off, and we were killing him under the Titan ball.
So was he like at a super far range, and so that's why the tracking was able to work?
I mean, my guys were in Condors. We were orbiting pretty well, trying to keep transversal up. I think I was in a Jag, and I might have messed up my transversal once and got instant. But, I mean, yeah. Honestly, the tracking on Titans in that regard is, I don't know. I think CCP was trying to nerf it, but they kind of went the wrong way with it.
So, Fred, do you think that Haw guns belong on Titans at all? Like, why do they need them?
So it's kind of multi-purpose, especially for people that rat with Titans as well. They're usually just Haw fit because they can kill, the NPC. I don't think it's a bad thing that Titans have Haw's fit. I just think at the moment it is a little bit overpowered.
It's always been my opinion that the majority of the time when we hear cases of like Haw Titans doing crazy tracking things and killing small ships, it's because those small ships are at range. And the thing that gets me is Haws are supposed to be just a bunch of regular large guns all mushed together and then stuck on a Titan, or a capital ship, because the capital ship has the size of the hard point to do that. But that makes no sense then why when you pile all of these large guns together, suddenly they get a massive increase to their range. Because if you look at the base stats for Haw guns versus regular guns, they just have straight up more base range. And that base range is, in my opinion, what allows them to appear to track so well. It's because they can use shorter range, higher tracking ammo to hit your ship when it's further out. Furthermore, when your ship is further out, its transversal isn't as high as it would be if you were closer together, and the Titan being able to hit out that far lets it track you. So I think if they nerf the range on these things, like just set the range on the Haw guns equivalent to the range on their, what's the term I'm looking for here, relative large guns, then the complaints about the tracking on Haw guns wouldn't be as severe, especially because they do have roughly 2/3 the tracking of regular battleship guns, right? So these things aren't anywhere near to as good a tracking as battleships, even after you stack a bunch of tracking computers or whatever into the mid slots on your Titan. So in my opinion, what they need to do is nerf the range on them, and that should solve some of these issues. I think the damage is good, but not really going to change much in terms of low sec, which I think is what I'm hearing from Pred as well.
Pretty much, yeah.
I completely agree with that. That's absolutely right. I never thought of it that way before, but it is the range that's oppressive.
Yeah, I disagree with everything that you guys said.
Thanks, Papa
No,
Rob.
no. But no, I think that the tracking should stay where it's at, only in the sense that, you know, one of the problems if you're in a Titan is a single frig can just hold you down, right?
Except it
if you
can't, though, because you
track it-
have massive warp core strength, so it has to be a hick in order to hold you down.
At least in low sec, yeah, but I think Ron's referring to null sec with like a saber or something.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair point.
You know, and so I mean, you need some sort of defensive measure with no drones, with no fighters. You know, you need something. I mean, if they're out of smart bomb range, you're kind of toast. So,
So,
you know,
Ron,
I think you should be able to apply damage. Yeah.
there's a tutorial actually that CCP made this will solve this problem. It's called How to Make Friends in EVE Online. I'd highly recommend you go check it out, because you see, if you have this friend in an anti-tackle ship and they're flying with your Titan, then suddenly that single
Jalep.
destroyer isn't a problem. Yeah, like you could
That's actually
make friends
that's
with
actually a really
Jalep.
good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. If I'm flying my Titan, I should definitely have lots of friends around. No. So we're going to continue on. Thank you for your feedback, though. It's, you know, we always appreciate that. But you know,
Well, that's
so
kind of the whole thing, right? Like a Titan
right.
wasn't meant to be like a solo kill all ship. It was
Oh,
meant as like
I
a
agree.
support ship.
Oh, yeah, I agree. And that's why I'm a fan of the damage, which is like it can still apply, it just can't apply as much. You know, it's less damage. So at least there's something. You know what I mean? It's I would rather have half of something than, you know, out of range or tracking or something where you're just applying nothing. You know what I mean?
Well, what about like newts and smart bombs as get yourself out of trouble weapons rather than Haw guns? Especially in low sec, right? It's not hard to newt off a heck or smart bombs and frigates. You know, is that enough to help you
Yeah, I mean,
get out of trouble when you get stuck?
like I mean, I would never fit a newt to a Titan, but you know, like I mean,
I did when I was
but
moving it for sure.
well, no, so that's you know that's completely you know applicable, right? But I mean, you know, you know, there's possibilities, but you know, I just hear you know the ghost of Pro God behind me. You fucking tell him, Ron. Ron, you tell him what's going on. Like I hear him in the background, you know, and this is kind of like what he wanted, right? Which was less Haw, you know, damage, you know, and getting rid of these insane fax reps, you know, that just Oh, so but also what I like is that this is in their wheelhouse now, and they're doing these balance changes and they're looking at it. So we'll try it out, we'll test it out. It's iteration, right? And we'll see how it works.
Indeed. And some other things they're going to be trying out, iterating on, are insurance. So this is something that has been requested for quite some time, especially since Rorqual proliferation, and so everything is getting incredibly cheap. But they are massively nerfing the insurance payouts on supercarriers, carriers, and faxes. They previously nerfed the insurance payout on Dread, so those are already pretty poor, at least relative to what they were beforehand. So now, all of your capital ships, the insurance payout is significantly lower than it was in the past. How do we think this is going to impact things? Are your groups going to stop dropping like capital ships and solo small gang scenarios? Is it no longer a viable doctrine for like mid-sized groups?
I think it's a good change, honestly.
I agree. I love the change.
Jalep, are you
more risk, right?
Are you worried that this is going to mean fewer juicy targets out there for you?
I pretty much doubt it.
Yeah, I don't. There's so much ISK in the game. I mean, I think it's good, moving in the right direction, but I don't think it's going to significantly impact cap usage.
Like that guy that killed your Magnate still would have dropped it, even though he would have less insurance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I what I like is that if you nerf insurance payouts so much, it's just one less thing that I have to worry about, right? If I'm only going to get 150 million back from insurance, I'm just going to stop insuring the damn. I would rather just roll the dice, unless I'm going to drop into the middle of a Wolverine ball or something. I mean, yeah, good. Hell with it. It's like, you remember having to upgrade your pod? That's other crap you do. I hate worrying about all this stuff.
It's true. One less tedious job to remember. Like, oh, did you insure your cap before we undock?
That's a fair point. It'll be interesting to see because the insurance is notably a quite large ISK sink. So, like, the amount of active ISK in the EVE Online economy is the insurance. The way that it's set up is it draws ISK away. It's gone. You pay it into the insurance, but then you never get a payout because you didn't lose your ship within the 3 months. So that ISK goes away. It goes to CCP, never to come back to the economy again. And so I think it'll be interesting to see if with these changes that has a significant impact when looking at the MER, like how much of a sink the insurance becomes looking forward after this. It'll be interesting. But moving on to some other changes which did come through, we had some sub-capital balance updates, just a smorgasbord of small changes, some larger than others. The ones that stick out to me as possibly affecting LoSec are the Vexor Navy issue and the Corax. So the Corax got its power grid increased by a significant amount, and the Vexor Navy issue had its signature radius increased, but more importantly had its drone max velocity bonus entirely removed. And I recall quite often fighting like low-sec Vexor Navy issue newt gangs that were extremely powerful in low-sec, and people seem to enjoy flying them. Is that still a thing? Do you think that's going to go away now? What are your thoughts?
Well, I used to chase Jalep off all the time with VNI Warriors, so...
Yeah, I mean, for sure, nothing made the Exodus Discord more lively than that VNI. I mean, we basically survive by being able to outrun stuff. And VNI Warriors, like Silver said, those things can go super, super fast. You can't hold tackle on... the VNI is probably one of the harder cruisers to hold tackle on as an interceptor because of that drone buff. I think it's kind of a weird nerf personally, because I think that really where the VNI is probably a little bit overused is in PvE. And I mean, as I said earlier, I don't really know the first freaking thing about PvE, but I don't really see how the drone speed nerf is going to negatively affect PvE, except in the obvious kind of narrow case where you get tackled by something. But it's not, I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't really think it's going to negatively impact like the income generation of a VNI, an AFK ratting VNI, except, like I said, when it gets caught.
It will
So
have an impact on drone travel time between targets. It won't have a significant impact, though. Like maybe 5% max is what I'm thinking, just spitballing. Because a lot of the time when you're rounding with your VNIs, you're in sites with a lot of battleships. And so your drones are spending the majority of their time shooting a battleship and not moving between targets. So it will have an impact. It certainly won't make Vex and Navy issues unviable by any means. They'll still be out there.
Yeah, it just seems to be disproportionately negatively affecting PvP for the VNI, which I don't really think the VNI as a PvP boat was particularly broken. Like I said, it seems to be maybe too heavily used as a PvE boat. So it's kind of an odd nerf, but I mean, we love it because it's going to make them way easier to catch and kill. So not crazy.
Did you ever run the VNI fleets in LowSec? I think I remember fighting you guys in them once.
We did when our corporation was still in alliance. We actually used to run VNIs with Ashimus and like Guardian fleets and go fight medium plexes. But we were more brawling then. We weren't really kiting. I think the only time that we ever really saw a VNI burn away is when it was like a 100 MN shield fit or ancillary armor rep. And then it would just kind of try to kite you down with drones with like some fleet support with it.
So this wouldn't necessarily affect your playstyle if you still flew that fleet?
No, I don't think so, because we would usually just ram our fleet into the other fleet and just start duking it out. We never really tried to kite or pull range with anything in regards to a VNI.
The proper low-sec way?
Pretty much.
Well, unless you're Exodus. Exodus, you guys didn't get much play from the optimal range bonus to medium beam lasers? Nobody's a fan of the shield zealot?
No, people are excited about that for Phantasm. Every once in a while, people try to have like a shield beam zealot make a comeback. So for sure, that'll help there.
Yeah, I definitely think the medium beam laser changes are going to be a benefit.
What about Gila?
We can't talk about the Gila.
Gotta talk about the Gila because I think that's a pretty big chop on the PvP.
Yes.
So the Gila comp is actually one of my main corps doctrines. We tend to use it for everything from like structure hitting to roaming to nullsec diving to big cap fights. We don't necessarily think the drone HP bonus is going to be that bad. I mean, if you're really hurt by it, you can just swap out to faction drones and you kind of get a little bit of that survivability back. Otherwise, it's not that bad of a change, and it's kind of weird to see it because like a full smart bomb comp can still get rid of your drones pretty quickly, even while they were at 500% bonus.
Yeah, and the change is that their roll bonus to drone HP has been reduced from 500% down to 250%. So previously, your 2 drones would have the HP of 10. Now they only have the HP of 5 drones.
Yeah, basically.
If I do my math right. We'll find out. Somebody will yell at me in the YouTube comments.
The one ship that was very surprising that wasn't on the chopping block is that damn Ferox, man. Jesus. Like...
It's there, but it's got weird adjustments.
Yeah, let's adjust the cockpit size and color on the left wing. And and also let's add some lights to it. Like what, man?
So are you guys in nullsec? Are you seeing still a lot of the probe and ping style combat where you've got like somebody in a prober and you're warping around he's warping the fleet around the grid?
Sure. And I think Artimus brought up that it's mostly done with bombers, right? So Artimus brought up earlier before the show that this does make them more vulnerable to that attack.
Yeah,
right? You got your blob with Feroxes there. You ping your bomber wing up there. They ain't getting away, and they're just going to die. Although that happened fairly regularly anyway. I don't really think that making them more vulnerable to that attack changes the ship really at all.
But I would say that probes are in probably 80% of every nullsec fight. The FC's using probes and this and that. But I mean, I was kind of memeing on, the high sec Feroxes that we kill 200, we lose 200, like every day. And that's because the Ferox is such a strong ship because it has no range. problems, right? No matter what. If they have autocannon, you just warp to 100 and use spike. If they have long range, warp to 0 and use javelin, and that's it. Rinse and repeat. There's no skill to it. It's just a constant brawl, and I'm so bored of them. And I know that, like Killaby was talking about, he wanted to nerf them, and I mean we have tried other ships just to prevent complete boredom with the fights, and every time we just have to reship into Feroxes.
I mean, it almost brings you back to like when people just used to swarm like Whelpcane, and then when Whelpcanes got nerfed, like people went to Drakes, and you would just have the massive missile spam. It just
that's right.
It's kind of odd. I mean, at least in low sec, we used to use Ferox a lot, but we would blaster fit them, and we would just go in and start brawling people. As far as rail goes, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, the Ferox got nerfed not too terribly long ago.
Yes, it did. It lost its power grid, and I think it lost a bit of damage as a result. So basically now, in order to fit the tank fit that you want, you have to lose a mag stab and fit a PDS. So you lose some power grid, therefore you lose some damage. But otherwise, it's still relatively the same.
But how we fit him up in high sec, we don't even have a prop mod. It's just all tank, mag stabs and guns, and that's it. Warp to 0, kill.
Right.
So for us, we always kind of have this back and forth debate on what's more effective for our flying style, the Ferox or the Eagle. And this kind of sort of firmly entrenches that the Eagle is the superior choice because, it's of all the agility nerfs to the Ferox. Both of them give you great range and like Ron was saying earlier, tons of flexibility because you can swap out your ammo. We'll run 2 tracking computers. So between juggling what scripts you got in your tracking computer and what ammo you're using, you're effective from 40 kilometers all the way out to 180 or something like that. So it's a really great Swiss Army knife ship that it's never awesome in any scenario, but it's really good in a lot of different scenarios. And the Ferox nerf kind of just sort of ends that argument between the Eagle and the Ferox. And it's going to push at least us into the Eagles, which are more expensive. So that means more expensive lost mails, which I think is a good thing.
Do you think maybe the Harbinger change would now make the conversation between Eagles and Harbingers? Because you've got both the optimal range bonus to lasers and the power grid increase on the Harby.
I mean,
does it put it in contention?
With us in LoSec, we've been starting to use beam harbingers a lot more, and with Aurora, before the bonus that it's going to get now, you could hit up to 80 with beams. So, I mean, the only thing that the bonus that they're going to give you on the harbingers, well, at least with our fit, we'll be able to fit more tank to it. We'll still get pretty good DPS out.
Is it just
I think the Harby is. Well, no, it's not too short. It's when I'm talking about using the Eagle or Ferox, it's usually when we're going out to Null and we're going to fight we're going to fight Horde or Brave, somebody who's going to bring 75 ships to fight our 6 dudes. And so we need that real long range. So I wouldn't use the Harby even with the buffs now in those situations, but I think certainly in a low sec, smaller gang environment, I think it's certainly looking more attractive.
Oh yeah, and let me just also say that the big weaknesses of the Ferox, those are mitigated. Those don't exist in high sec, right? Bubbles and bombs. But as soon as you go in null sec, then the Ferox is, that's like a little birthday cake kind of roaming around. No one would undock a Ferox in null sec. So yeah, no, just stay away from that.
Okay. Does anybody want to mention anything about the Abaddon, Cyclone, or Caracal Navy issue changes? Anything worth talking about there to you guys?
So the
never even heard of those ships.
I was going to say, really.
So the Abaddon buff, I think that's more into relation of how cheap the Balgorn is getting. Because at this point, there's no difference in using a Balgorn over an Abaddon. A Balgorn is just better in every. So I almost feel like it's TCP's attempt to be like, hey, the Abaddon still gets your armor resistance per level, and now we're giving it an extra damage buff.
Yeah, I mean, we messed around when we were still in low sec with Hellcats for a little while, those beam Abaddons, but I mean, you could use a Balgorn. I still don't think it puts it over that, does it?
No, definitely not. Just, because the Balgorn still gets the full damage bonus, and you have 3 utility highs that you can use for newts and nosses. And I don't know. Maybe I just kind of feel like it's an attempt to just kind of get the ship used a bit more, but I don't think it will do much.
I think T1 battleships in general are in a bad spot, right?
Oh,
mean,
well,
definitely.
Baltec fleet is still used regularly. We saw it even back in the big war, particularly in the northern front. Baltec fleet was the main ship used by both sides, which is you have Megathrons and Abaddons. So that fleet is getting a buff. You also have Horde uses Abaddons or tries to use Abaddons in high sec. I've flown the fleet a couple of times, granted in AUTZ, so I have a limited scope, but I've never seen it work particularly well in that arena either. And the issues seem to be more with its cap is hot garbage, so if you're trying to bash the Keepstar and perimeter with Abaddons, you have to refit all of your mids to cap. You have 0 utility, and even then, because the Keepstar has newts on it, you have to constantly be sending newt from your Logi wing over. It's just, there are so many downsides. I don't think the damage bonus will make any effect. The one area where I thought it could be useful is like memeing solo PvP, but Stitch K, who is a prolific meme in the sense that he doesn't follow the meta, so he is a very off-meta solo PvPer. He made a post where it's like, yeah, no, the Abaddon's still hot garbage even after this change. Here are some changes I'd recommend instead. So I think this is just not going to change anything other than a slight buff to Baltec fleet.
The Abaddon's like the snowy owl. Like everyone, we want to see one sometime in PvP, but I don't think we are. I mean, it's going to be rare if it does. We'll have to watch the corners and the barns for it.
Okay, well, the final change on the chopping block to discuss are the 4, if I recall correctly, changes to the Rorqual. So it's getting massive, like literally cut in half, the tank on a Rorqual, at least in terms of its shield boost. So previously, industrial cores would give you 120 to 140% bonus to your shield booster boost amount. That's being cut in half down to 60 to 75%. In addition, your panic module is having its cycle time reduced to 4 minutes base, which means its max is only 6 minutes instead of 5 minutes base and a max of 7.5. So the response time has to be a bit quicker, and your self-tank is drastically reduced. And then there's also changes to excavators. So your excavators are getting an 80% reduction a 20% reduction in their yield, and they're also having their volume increased so that you can only fit 4 of them into a Wetu instead of 5. So if you do get caught and you do die, you're going to lose at least 1 excavator. So that's an extra 800 million ISK on every Rorqual lost mail.
I hate this.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that, like way off in the distance? It's like 1 million crabs clacking away, suddenly silenced.
You know what? The Rorqual's a funny ship, right? I personally hate the ship because groups my size, they're just bird feeders, right? If we put them out there and you siege up in a group my size, you're going to eventually die. So to keep a positive ISK flow while using that ship was hard enough. So now, like, if I've been trying to figure out ways to allow my guys to use them because I constantly get, why can't we use Rorquals? But now that the small guy is hurt now because that panic and tank was giving them enough time for me to form up. I'm not in Imperium. I'm a small group. I can get 5 facts maybe if I beg, plead, and pull people for like 20 minutes. So this to me is pushing it even closer to be just being like, we're never going to use that ship ever. Well, and I think that kind of sucks.
Let's talk about low sec really quickly, because you do occasionally see Rorquals in low sec, although not very often, to be honest. Did we see combat Rorquals in low sec at all, ever?
Yeah, I've seen combat Rorquals.
Sure. Yeah. Buren does it on stream sometimes.
Because combat Rorquals, I think, are going to take the biggest hit from this. I know in the process, I was saving my combat Rork. I was going to keep my combat Rork in addition to having some mining works, but now I've just pulled the rigs off the combat Rork. I'm selling off the pieces I don't need anymore. It's gone. Because it's just not... The only reason to use it was because of its massive tank, and its massive tank is gone now. So
Plus, I think this nerf is a little bit late. I've noticed, like, since I've been down south, that people have gotten exceedingly good at killing oracles. Like, they die like several a day down in our region. Like, so nerfing the tank, people have already figured out how to kill them. I mean, I see videos pop up like every day of Dracuvacs are really good at it with neuting and ramping up damage. I mean, I don't know. I think they were able to die just fine. I don't know that it needed a nerf to tank. I kind of agree with the drones, but
there's one other change I should mention before we continue this discussion, which, to compensate a little bit, to make your oracles a bit more useful, they did buff their bonuses to fleet command bursts. So now if you're using a oracle to boost your hulks or whatever that are mining, it's a bit better there. But that's not really going to compensate for the loss in yield, certainly, or for the loss in tank or what have you. And that loss in yield is something I want to talk about, because that's going to affect mineral prices at the end of the day, unless the stores of minerals are just, well, the stores of minerals could just be absolutely massive and mind-boggling, and so this wouldn't be a drop in the bucket. But an 80 or a 20% reduction in the ore output of this single greatest ore mining ship in the game across the board is going to adjust mineral prices. You have to expect, right? And that's going to affect, like, the cost for your ships.
Yeah, maybe. Or the big boys will just put more oracles out. That's my opinion.
So the reduced hold of the drones reduces, their, ISK making, just because it takes so long for those little drones to come back and forth, right, to drop off their ore and go back to the rock, and that constant travel time, right, and that's where people use, plugins and whatnot to try to speed that up. But I think, I really like this sort of, you know, benefits kind of falling off the more that are around. I really think, something like if you have 10 Rorquals in a system, like an 11th Rorqual is going to do 10% of the others are doing. I mean, that's me though, but, just to start to kind of rein in the people that have 20 and 30 Rorquals, that's just, now we're just getting silly. That's like people like wearing pimp hats with a peacock feather. Like, you already got the pimp hat. You don't need the peacock feather as well, right? Just stick with what you know.
Well, I just think that these changes will just make those guys inject another alt and put another Oracle in the field. I mean, all it's hurting is guys like me. Like, where we struggle, as I'm a group of PvPers. Jalep knows where we came from. Me getting people shifted into the mindset that we have to mine moons now sucks as a content creator, because they don't want to do it, right? So tantalizing them with the Oracle, like, at least get the job done quicker, or make them feel like they're in a big dog ship, or make it somewhat enjoyable, was the way I was doing it. Like, continuing to nerf Oracles in this fashion makes it harder for me to get the job done that Eve is, to survive as an alliance, and it bothers me. Like, I'm telling you, it was already close to where I hate the ship anyway, and now it's like, I'm just going to put as many barges on a moon as I can, or hire people to do it at this point. Like, I don't know. It hurts the little guy. The big guys are just going to put one or two more tunes out there under the super umbrella, and everything will be just fine for them. It just sucks for me.
Let's shift perspective here a minute to Jalep and Predator. So as the PvPers who, well, I say that, were Rorquals on the kill mail menu for you guys to begin with? Exodus, with your such small gangs and with your focus particularly on low sec and Did He Say Jump, did you guys haunt Rorquals whatsoever? Will this change affect you at all if it doesn't affect mineral prices?
I mean, the Rorquals that we've caught in low sec, we've basically killed. I think we've only ever missed one, but that was just because they spammed a bunch of caps at us. Otherwise, we just go wormhole diving into null sec, and whatever ones we catch, we generally can't kill before the blob comes in. So I don't know. The change doesn't really affect us too much.
How about you?
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way. I mean, I don't know that other than combat Rorks and obvious snuff bait, I've ever encountered a Rork in low sec, or at least certainly not in any significant way. It's always diving into wormholes into null. But I look at it exactly the same way as Pred does. If we catch a Rork we're not expecting to kill it with our, like, 2 BCs and a cruiser and a scepter or something. We're hoping to hold it until the rescue fleet shows up so that we can kill the rescue fleet. So the effect of the change is not really going to be all that significant on us because we weren't generally ever expecting to kill the Rourke in the first place.
The reduced panic time may mean that rescue fleets are now more haphazard, smaller, or generally like easier to kill, do you think?
Yeah, more straggled in, maybe. Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. My group will, if it ever happens to us, will definitely be more panicked. One fax goes in, that's probably going to die now. Or people stream in whatever they can pull out of their hangar. Yeah, that'll probably be more of a thing.
All right, well, do we have any final thoughts on these changes? Oh, I forgot, we should mention skillbook price changes with skills on demand, the new ability for you to buy skills directly from your skill sheet for a markup, that including skill changes to the price of skill books from NPCs and stations have come through. They're on CC, and just about everything seems to have gone up in price by about 10%, with a couple of major outliers, and particularly like the Rorqual skill book doubled in price. So that's something that's worth mentioning, but you can go check out all those prices that are on CC now. Apart from that, is there anything else we want to discuss about these changes? Anything we missed? Anything worth continuing on?
Saves me having to move from station and get a skill book.
You're just going to take the 30% markup for your convenience?
Sure, I mean, why not?
Of course, yeah. More risk sinks are a good thing.
Well, that and you reduce the job of trying to go get a skill book, which is just a killer job to have to do.
Yep.
But what about all those poor market seeders who seeded markets with the skill books?
I know. I mean, like I said before, though, it helps new bro organizations like me. Maybe a guy has the ISK, right? He's trained into caracals, but we want to fly Vexers. And he can buy skill injectors, or maybe he has skill injectors. If he could just grab the skill books right then and there, inject up, he can come out on fleet rather than shit. No one seeded that book. Sorry, bro. Maybe you can get in a frigate. I think that alone will help people like me just put together fleets quicker.
It's going to help us massively because we have test free, right, and we give out free skill books, but that's just a hassle having to constantly get those and constantly keep them, and we give them away for free, but it reminds me of the GE TAC 8 days. And you remember that Eagle that had 8 billion in skill books in it that PL killed? That poor guy, and he was moving the Brave Newbies skill books. I, make it easier for him. Every day we get, we have new bros that need skill books. And it's you know what? We'll give them the ISK. Just get rid of all this silliness.
Make less a job for those guys, right? I want to fly ships. I don't want to go all the way back to some school system to get a skill book just to go fly with my fleet if it wasn't seeded.
All right. Well, then I guess that'll be the end of today's show. Thank you very much for our guests for showing up. Really quickly, before we do go away, shoutouts. We'll start with you. Jalep, do you have any shoutouts for us today?
Oh, I didn't know we were going to do this. No, just a shout out to all the nano PvPers out there watching, I guess.
I do have a question for you, Ron. On the scale of the people that you dislike in EVE, where are nano PvPers? Are they even on the scale?
Is it on the list?
Dude, that's actually funny you would say that. So I tried faction warfare once, and the nano PvPers are fine, dude. They're fine. They're what I didn't like was the warp core stab people that just warp off. Why are you even here, man?
Farming, bro.
What are you doing? Stay and fight. I don't care if I lose, just fight. So the nano PvPers and the Garmers and all this people running around, whatever. At least they're fighting. It's all good,
Right on. Predator Elite, you got a shout out for us?
Yeah, I'll shout out to Dato because he's begging me to do one for him.
All right. Silver?
My media guys, Moriar in particular, made a really great ad that we've been needing. I think it's going to help recruiting quite a bit. We are recruiting, but good job, buddy.
Fantastic. And while that ad plays for those watching the video, my shout out goes to, I should mention before the shout out, so Talking in Stations is going on break for 2 weeks. We have Season 1 is ending. We're going to be transitioning over to Season 2, so this is the last midweek update before we go on break. We'll have a Sunday show, and that'll be the last Sunday show before the break. And we'll be coming back in 2 weeks. You'll be able to find the full schedule and everything on the TIS Discord, or you can just follow our Twitch channel, check out our website, and you'll get notifications when the new shows come out. But as a result of this, there's going to be a lack of Talking in Stations regular content. We still may do specials and things as wars kick off and big fights happen. But I'll still be doing the other podcasts that I do, Declarations of War, with Alexiev Card and Levitain, who are my co-hosts over there. So I want to shout out to those guys. We're still going to be doing episodes even while TIS is on break. So if you're needing a fix for your Eve podcasts, I would highly recommend that. Get my shill in. Watching this update, we'll let the ad play out with sound on to end the show.